and hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode. If not now, when? Today, I am so excited to welcome our next special guest, also one of my greatest friends, Daran Herrman, to join us today. He is a founder and CEO of a Real Market, an online marketplace that brings efficiency in selling and buying your next home. Daran, as a serious entrepreneur, CEO of Goboto, a full-service marketing firm that have helped over 100 clients from all over the world, helping them to grow and scale their business. He's also the host of Establishing Your Empire show, which is interviewing hundreds of amazing entrepreneurs, business owners, help see their journey of how they become so successful in their own right. With that, everybody, please join me to welcome Daran. Thank you so much, friend, for joining us. Welcome to the show. So tell us, how does all the magic begin for you?
Oh, the magic began. I don't know if I'd call it magic, but
It is magical.
my career started at the ripe age of 13 years old, making $3 an hour cash underneath the table, being a dishwasher. And I think that hustle mentality has constantly been there for me of being able to try to make it myself, whether it's been when I was 13 years old or now I'm almost 40. But yeah, I think it was just always coming from a small town, working hard, growing up with not much and wanting a whole lot.
Wow, that's beautiful. Where does that come from? Or is it always present in your life?
That's tough. I would say, so I'm a new dad, and I think you start looking at your life differently when that happens. And I think sports was a big thing. So sports and just wanting a whole lot more than what we had. So when you kind of pair those two, because sports teaches you a lot about just showing up, being there, competition, wanting to win. And then the other side of just not having a whole lot, but kind of pretending that you could have a lot and then just making that come to fruition. Like in high school, there was no idea that we didn't have a lot of money because I was working throughout high school. So I think it just was one of those things where you visualize it before it happened and it becomes reality eventually.
So tell us about that journey. So you were in a little small town in Kansas.
Yep.
Wanted more, and what happened next?
Well, so one thing that's wonderful when you do start working at a young age, like instead of like getting out of college and doing a small job, I was already doing those jobs during high school. And then college, I was working full time. And I luckily met my mentor, which I joke with him now that I call him that now, at that time is just your boss, right? And he owned a jewelry store and became the manager very shortly, just a small jewelry store, but did a ton of revenue and very high end, like diamonds. Like our average sale was like $800. So very high end. So which was great because then you end up interacting with these people with a lot of money, which was a different from my upbringing, right? And so after a couple years, and you're in retail, so there's a lot of, it's busy and then it's really slow. So when it comes slow, we started like brainstorming ideas and doing this and doing that. I was always really into the web. And this is 2001, 2002. So this is a long time ago. And eBay just started. So we opened a eBay drop-off store. So like my thought is I could have these stores everywhere and we'd sell things on eBay for people. And we actually did pretty well. And in fact, that was when I was 20 years old. And by the time we were 21, a complementary retail business bought us. Well, we merged with them. They acquired us. And then I fully exited before I graduated college. But that was basically working full-time at the jewelry store, owning those two businesses and going to school at the same time, which what that did is your prioritization of school was lower. So as opposed to a lot of people come out of college and it was, a prestigious college, mine was more of a, Division II small college, 5.5 years to graduate, but I came out of it with a lot of experience with work.
Was that intentional?
Oh, no, I think I was just always constantly looking for the next thing. And this is what's interesting when you're young and you're just hungry is you didn't look at all the potential like problems or is this the best decision? It was like if there was one little sliver of opportunity, I like ran and grabbed it. Like I would get so excited about it, and whether it was the right decision or not, which in hindsight, maybe not, but like at the end of the day, it gave me the experience of learning how to run a business, learning how to deal with employees that are your own employees. Like I fired a manager that was sleeping on my couch because he was going through a divorce and he wasn't showing up to work. And like dealing with that, it's just experience that you can't get working for somebody else.
What is the biggest lesson you learned in that period of time where you just figured out who you are? You saying yes to every opportunity that come to your way, and like you said, you stay hungry and you're just there to learn. What is the biggest lesson?
I think the biggest lesson would be that what's the worst that can happen? Like now that you start having things, you start worrying about like all the what ifs. And I think that you have to constantly bring yourself back to like, what's the worst that can happen? You're not going to die. And at the end of the day, you're really, usually it's somebody else's money, whether it's a bank or investors or whatever. And luckily we were able to always do well on that side of it. But, I think that if you look into it too deeply, you just won't start. So just starting, because at the end of the day, it's all going to be okay.
I love that mentality. Daran, is that who you always are, or do you think that's who you become throughout that process?
I think it's more who I always was, and I actually think I have to bring myself back to that. I think that I've actually changed on the flip side now that, things have been well for a while, and that there's more opportunities now that come your way. And I think it's healthy to always have a balance. But I feel like sometimes I get out of balance of not, rushing in. So I try to actually go back to my original self of maybe just taking anything that comes my way every once in a while.
That's beautiful lessons. So what's next for you? Now you graduated from college, you have all the experiences. What's next?
Yeah, so, I grew up in Kansas, like you were saying, a small town. And I was a big fish small town, which I loved. Actually, Hays, Kansas was a wonderful town. I still enjoy it. But I was tired of the cold, freezing cold winters. And in 2008 was like 2007/2008 was one of the coldest years in Kansas. Just, running into work, running to your car, running into your house, like just for like 4 months. I came to Austin, Texas, had one buddy here in March, and it was just gorgeous. And the energy of the city, I just fell in love with all of it. And the weather. And I love the heat. So it made so many sense on so many levels. And the people here are very similar to Kansas, very easy to get along with. So I wanted to move, and it was a difficult process because I did own 2 businesses at the time. I had a house with 3 tenants, small house, but still. And so I figured it all out. And within 5 weeks, I left with a carload and one friend and slept, no job, no nothing.
Was it easy to walk away from all those success from outside world?
So it wasn't. What actually happened was I had an opportunity that I said no to for the first time. It was to open a bar that was just a home run deal. I mean, I knew the owners of the building, and they were going to give us like half rent and all these things. Easy, like you walk into it, no problem. And it was like the first time I said no, and I was like, oh, why am I saying no? And with some, introspective thought, I realized I didn't want to attach myself to this small town anymore. So when that happened, that shifted my brain to sit there and say, okay, I need to leave if this is the case. So it was extremely hard to leave because I went from knowing everybody to knowing nobody, like one person. But it was very exciting. There's nothing more exciting than a new city, especially. And at the time, by the way, I'm like 25, 26 years old. So that's very exciting. Moving without a job, since I was 13 years old, I've had a job the whole time. So there was 2 weeks I luckily got something, but that was the longest I ever been without a job since I was 13 years old. So that was actually more scary to me than anything. Was I was just used to being always doing something, and that was part of my job, was like part of my identity, right? But I really wanted to go from more of the retail space to the technology space because I was always kind of a tech geek, built computers when I was like super young and stuff like that. So I found a company a really bad job. It was like sales coordinator was the role or something like that. So like I literally didn't want to even go in for the interview, but this recruiter called me and he talked it up a little bit. So I looked on their website, terrible website, but they had $50 million in funding. So I was like, all right, we'll see what's going on here. And interview goes really well, and I was pretty much going to say, like, this isn't one for me, because I was looking for something probably a little bit of a larger role. And then we walked the factory floor, and they refurbished computers, and they just had all these things there, all these servers, all these computers. And like I said, a terrible website. And I was like, oh, I can do something here. And for me, what I've learned is I like to be able to create an impact. It's fun for me to, like, I would take a lesser role if I could do more. In fact, I own a marketing company right now, and we love to work with smaller companies and medium-sized companies because we can actually do stuff for them as opposed to large companies. But anyway, so they were doing about $15,000 a month in online sales. And by the time, after about 4 or 5 years, I grew to over $1 million a month in online sales. And we got acquired by Arrow Electronics, which is a massive company. And I stayed on with them for about 2 years as their director of e-commerce. But that was a really fun growth period of basically breaking everything we could to get it to be. And these are, $150 to $300 machines. So selling $1 million a month is a lot of computers.
Wow, but you did it.
We did it, and I grew a team. It was just me to start with. And then it was kind of like I was an entrepreneur. So basically I had no budget until I got the sales. So I had to kind of be I was the customer service person. I was the person building the website. I was the person making sure the shipping was going out on time. To then, as we got more and more sales, I was able to grab more and more employees and hire more people. And by the time we were doing $1 million a month, then it's a full, huge team. But it was fun to be able to basically grow it from nothing to something large.
Wow, you must be very proud of yourself, Daran.
In retrospect, yes, but at the time, you get to $1 million a month, like, okay, well, now we can do $2 million a month, right? And what I've learned from that is you definitely need to celebrate your successes, because I don't think we did. Like, I think the month that we hit over the million, we sent an email out to the team and stuff, but that was kind of it. There wasn't like some big champagne toast as you think it would be, right?
Yeah.
Because that was really a goal of ours for a long period of time. And now I try to do that more because you only have so many of those in life, and that you should really celebrate them.
What does that look like right now?
Well, right now, I'll jump ahead real quick, but I have a huge thing that I want to celebrate because I'm creating a startup called The Real Market.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it's basically we're trying to disrupt the real estate industry by creating a marketplace that brings your home buyers and sellers together with your real estate agents. And the key thing, there's going to be a lot of things, but the key thing is real estate agents could set their own price. Mm-hmm. So, hey, if they want to charge their normal rate, great. If they want to do a discount, great. And we just got our first buyer under contract yesterday, which is going to get a $12,450 rebate check
Wow.
in 30 days.
So it's a buyer who received that check, right?
So they're buying the house, and so because there's a discounted rate with a top agent. By the way, the agent is top 3 in Central Texas. So we're not talking about a lower end agent, just a way to bring the two together, in a way that is more efficient on both sides. So everybody wins, really. The real estate agent wins because they got this great, $800,000 plus deal. And then the buyer wins because they get this great $12,000 plus check when they close. And then the seller of that house wins too, because then everybody got brought together. And that's really what we're hoping to do is to bring everybody together in a more efficient way.
Wow. So really, listeners, if you are buying a house, you are selling the house, you are the agent, you are all and above, please do contact Daran about the exciting opportunity.
Absolutely, because we're just, we're a startup. So I think what's great is what I've learned over the years too is whenever something's starting, if you get in early, you kind of basically can get a jump on everyone else too. Mm-hmm. So.
I love that. Why real estate, Daran? Now we talk about a successful e-commerce business to a full-blown online marketing agency, and why real estate now?
So that I don't think I knew right away, but what I've learned kind of thinking back is, one, I love the internet, and real estate has had some advances with the internet, but very few compared to most industries. So we have Zillow who's done, so you could actually see the transparency of what houses are worth and what's been listed. But really the real estate transaction to me has a lot of ways to improve it. And then I started thinking, okay, really why? Back when I sold that house in Kansas, in 2007, 2008, I actually had a website and sold it myself without an agent. I built a website for it and sold it to some guy from Phoenix who never even saw the place. So I was like, oh, you know what? I've actually been doing this internet real estate thing forever. I just didn't really realize it.
Yeah.
And then buying our house, we had a wonderful agent, but we did a lot of the legwork. So I felt like, if that happens, I'm not so sure that should have got a full rate. I think there's always a value in a real estate agent, a massive value. Sometimes it should be the full 6%. Sometimes it shouldn't be. And I think somebody should be able to understand what value they're getting out of their agents and the value they get out of the home buyers and sellers as well. So
I love that. I think really coming from not only your own experiences and your own process of selling and buying home, but most importantly, you have this passion to create impact in the industry that really have not been touched for tens, hundreds years.
Yeah, the 1950s is when the rates
1950.
was. Yeah. So it hasn't really been changed. It was funny because these ideas, you don't sit outside and just like think of ideas. It's, I think the original idea, which is, I'll have a piece on it, is we were at dinner with a buddy of mine and we started chatting about this. I go, you know what, this is interesting. So I pulled out my phone and hit record, and I said, hey, let's just forget that the phone's recording, but let's keep chatting.
Yeah.
Because then you start coming up with all these ideas, and luckily I was able to record it, and then I like to transcribe that, and then you can kind of highlight, oh, okay, there is some cool ideas that we had. It wasn't just, shooting smoke, but, and then, 6 months later, here we are.
I love that. One of your superpower, Daran, that I always see is you're such a visionary. You are someone that always can see from the spark of idea, see the full picture about how you actually create impact. And I think that is such a gift, not only to you but so hundreds and thousands of customers in the whole world.
And that's really kind of you. And I would say that that is definitely a strength of mine. Where the weakness comes in is, okay, now what? So you have the idea, you have to build the idea. And I think it's really powerful to understand where your shortfalls are, because then that's when you bring in other people to help. And that's what I've been doing. I've had you come and help, and I've had my brother's a computer programmer, having him help, having other people help, come in board with the areas that I'm not so good at, and to make the dream become a reality, right?
I love that. I think oftentimes we are so bother about the idea, work on the weaknesses. But today, my humble view is I think it's not about really the how, it's about the who. Because we all naturally have a gift that we all just so wonderful and so naturally good at. And even I can try so hard to be trying to improve my weaknesses, but can never be as good as someone maybe like yourself who are naturally good at that specific skill set. So then if I can just focus on my gift and bring in that who, so we can create that win-win scenarios. I tell people as an Asian, and math I like to do, we're good at math. Math I like to do is 1 + 1 = 3. It's when I bring my full selves on the table, when you do the exactly same, now 1 + 1 = 3. Now synergetically, we create a bigger and greater world for all of us.
I love it. I was just saying before we jumped on, this is why I hang out with you, because you're so motivational and positive, and you make me want to take over the world.
Life is so short. Why not?
Right.
I think we all just come this planet, share our gift. And your gift is bring that efficiency to the online marketplace, allow buyers and sellers, allow all of us to buy our next home with the peace of mind. I think that's such a great and amazing gift. And the fact that it's not in my heart, it's in your heart, that means you are the one that meant to drive this vision forward. And therefore, I just felt so honored and grateful to get to share your story on the platform.
And it's powerful to talk to some people who have this very optimistic viewpoint. And I am that way as well, but it's really easy to fall into, oh, well, is this a stupid idea? Or, has this already been done, kind of, or there's going to be so much competition. You can keep going on this large list of things, and you just have to constantly put yourself back on track of just, hey, let's just get our task list done. Let's not worry about those things. Let's just continually drive forward. And then, like I said, we just had this deal closed yesterday, which was very exciting because that just kind of like reinforces the thing, and it's really nice to get some of those. And we have another one working as well. So already starting to gain some traction early on.
That's so exciting. And I want to second what you said, Darren, is I really fundamentally believe that it really does not matter what people say, what people think. It does not matter is there a competitor out there, or of course those are all matters for us to, as an entrepreneur, to be mindful, knowing what market we walk into, what strategy we are striking to make an effort. But big picture, right? 90% of startups fail. If you're looking at that data, why we even bother? Like, just go find a job then. But when we factor in our dream, our vision, our heart, our drive, the entire picture shifts. And it's always up to us to decide what we want to focusing on. And you're right, it is easier to fall in that track. But if it's so easy, everyone else will do it. And I really believe that the fact that this is ideas in your heart, you are the chosen one. You are the one that meant to drive this vision forward. It's not going to be me. Even though I heard the idea, I understand the idea, I could probably build the idea, but it will not be me. It just takes that extraordinary to become extraordinary. And that's you.
I love it. And when you kind of need that passion, because when it gets a little bit boring or hard, it's going to be difficult. But one thing I always think about too is like, what decisions that I'm doing now puts me in a better position 5 years from now. I'm a big believer of thinking that 5 years out from now, like let's say if you're taking a job or you're going to do a career shift, or some people think about going back to school or whatever it would be. Doesn't really matter what that action is I like to sit there and say, is this going to put you in a better position 5 years from now? And typically, if it's like a lateral move, that isn't the case. If you're just taking it for a 5% increase in pay or whatever. That's how I think, though. Totally great if that makes you happy to just do that and coach. That's all you. But for me, I look at that more than what decisions I'm making for today.
Let's talk about that. So are you saying that you are intentionally setting the goal 5 years ahead? How does that process look for you?
So everything is that way. So 2 years ago, I did a podcast because I was pretty sure that it called Establishing Your Empire, which you're a wonderful guest. One of my favorite episodes, by the way.
No pressure, but yay.
At least top 50. No, I'm kidding. But I did
that hurts.
Just kidding. But I did that because I knew eventually I was going to do a startup, and I wanted to be deeply engaged with some venture capitalists, some private equity people. And hey, it's not that much fun to say, hey, let's go get coffee, but it's a wonderful experience to say, can you come on my podcast, right? And have a discussion, an hour-long discussion or whatever it is, and you develop a connection. So that was thinking, maybe not 5 years out, but that was, here we are 2 years later, and I have a startup running. So right now, creating a startup, again, I go back to like, what's the worst could happen? Well, the worst could happen is I create a startup that fails, but I learned so much that I can do the next one, right? Now, that is not what we're going for. Don't get me wrong at all. But you do have to look, that's an optimistic mindset of saying, at the end of the day, I still can turn this into a positive, because I absolutely think, everything I'm learning right now, because there's so many new things all the time. I'm learning so much. And to me, that's one of the exciting things about creating a startup is because you're doing stuff that hasn't been created. So you have to figure it out on your own, or somebody helps you figure it out. And it's not an easy path.
This is so exciting. And if we do all the things we already know and learned, then we might just die. Because that's the only thing certain in our life is we're all going to die. Everything else is all up to air. So we might just do something different, I think. But back to you, Daran. Talking about failure, talking about what will be worst thing possible, what is your biggest fear? Or do you have any?
Oh, I think boredom. I think being bored is something that I've realized is a big fear of mine. And, I'm not talking about like being bored for an hour. I'm talking about like doing a life that is not fulfilling and that I dislike or look back upon and wish I would have done things. I also think to slow down time, you have to create new experiences, because otherwise your memories, just it meshes together. So
I love that point. Slow down time. We have to create new experiences.
Yeah, and it's very true. So when you start thinking about it, is because when you look back for the last 5, 6, 7 years, what do you remember, right? And that's usually your new experiences. But it's really easy. Let's say, so you get a job that's really a great job. It's really easy to just coast with that. And for me, I've done that a little bit in my past. Only 2 years, but still, I feel like that's my biggest fear is doing something like that again because of security reasons or something like that.
Do you think that you were born entrepreneur, Daran?
Ooh, I think so, just because it has to somewhat be there because I get really, really excited about new ideas and creating new things and doing it. So I suppose so. I do think that, it's both nature and nurture. I got really lucky that Eric Wagner, who was the jewelry store owner that I met when I was 19 or 20 years old, 19 years old, and he owned a lot of companies. So he showed how easy it is to just start something. And we would always constantly be doing stuff. I owned a clone kiosk in the mall. We would buy semi-truck loads of returns from Walmart and sell them in parking lot sales. I mean, always something, always scheming on something, and how easy that stuff really was to get started. So that would be kind of the nurture part of just understanding that you too can do it. You don't have to be some special person. You could just put a little bit of work into it and do it.
How do you define hustle? I think that's who you are.
Yeah. How do you define it? And by the way, there's a lot of times where I'm down on myself because I'm not hustling hard enough. So how do I define it? I think it's creating some goals and constantly moving toward those goals.
Yeah. Do you always setting goals? Is it a yearly ritual or quarterly? How does that for you?
So in a perfect world, I try to always be this way, but we're definitely not perfect. Is you start the year, you set your goals before you start the year. You set your goals before start the month. I set goals every single day in the morning. It's kind of a quick ritual, and I'm not talking about like these massive goals. They're usually like, hey, I'll be happy when this day's over if I do one or two things that I come up with. And I have that in the morning, and then that is. Because it's really easy to get busy with 18,000 things.
Yeah.
So if I know that it's going to be kind of a busy day with just like emails or whatever it will be, or discussions or meetings, I might just give myself one goal. And that might be something very small. But then I know that I'm happy when the day's over because I accomplished what I set out to do that day. For the yearly goals my wife and I come up with, we have kind of this whole huge thing of financial, family, career goals, the whole 9 yards, and those are the bigger goals. That takes usually hours to come up with, and we whiteboard it and we take photos of it and try to hold each other accountable to those.
Wow, so it's like a full afternoon session. You all put in categories. Is a goal joined together as a couple and.
Both. So both.
Love
So
that.
we one at a time. But so like for me, it's usually like a kind of a list. For my wife, it's kind of like this brainstorming board with like circles over here and
Vision
whatever it would
board.
be. Yeah. Very different because that works for her and
Yeah.
that's different for me. I'm a little bit more logical, like X, Y, and Z. But it's also powerful to do that with your significant other because you might learn something that's important to them that you haven't talked about. So
I love that.
Yeah.
What if your partner not open to the idea?
Well, I met Eric. He's definitely open to the idea. He's the right partner for you. So I'm sure he'd love it too.
Amazing. I'm curious about the daily routine you talk about. So in the morning, you wake up, you drink a coffee, you write down one goal. Is that how it goes?
So I don't write down. I probably should.
Oh, you in your mind?
I just mind. Yeah. So for me,
Amazing.
a shower as soon as I wake up is like the best way to start a day, and that is where I do my thinking.
Okay.
And so it's literally a 3-minute exercise.
Yeah.
Like you know what you're doing that day. We're not talking about these
Yeah.
large goals. We're talking about like a tactical goal.
I love that.
Usually. So, for instance, today is to be a wonderful podcast guest.
You have achieved it. Check, check.
check. No, actually, I had a
Amazing.
different goal, which was basically just a design thing that I need to get done today for the startup. So working on a specific page. That's usually what it is. Like we need this one done off to somebody who can code it up. Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So for me, I have a very specific morning routines. I wake up in certain hours, and I let people around me I loved do not talk to me throughout the first 2 hours of time because I really need to be alone. And I will look at my goals or my visions. I will read it out loud, and I will visualizing it, and I will meditate, and I will journal. Sometimes the order is not always the same, and I'll take a walk with my dog, and all that. And now I can talk to human beings. Now I'm like, I'm ready. I'm alive. Now bring on the world.
You must be like me. I know myself, I'm not the best in the morning. So like
I'm so not.
for instance, I have kind of a rule that I don't do meetings before 10 in the morning,
Oh, I
if
love
possible.
that.
And now I have a booking link that doesn't allow you to do it before 10. Also, my marketing company has a lot of freelancers overseas. So a lot of times I want to make sure that anything that any questions they have before they're like done for their day that I get to.
Yeah.
So it's a twofold approach, but typically I just know that I'm not going to be the best in the morning unless like I prep for it and
Yeah.
you know, wake up earlier
Yeah.
to make sure. And plus I do have a son who just turns 1 today, actually. Today's his birthday.
Happy birthday!
Yeah.
Hugo the boss.
You're the boss. That's right. So it's his 1-year-old birthday today. But like, and also he's, you know, I got to get him ready for daycare. So there's a little bit of that too now, but even
Yeah.
before him, that's how I did it.
It's amazing. I love how intentional you are, Daran.
Well, I also just know that like if I'm going to give my best self, it's not going to be at 7:30 in the morning. So
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, the more we are in the process of create things we truly passionate and truly love, it's really important to be intentional about how we show up every single day and make sure that we know what is the best. Right? Some people might not, maybe a night owl. I am not. Some people are more, different kind of preferences. That self-awareness truly are set us apart, I think.
I think so too. One thing that I've learned, like the more I get around very successful people, is you don't need 1,000 great ideas every year, every day. Is you just need like 1 or 2 every year. That's it. Like if you make 1 or 2 great decisions during that year, that's a good year, because that's usually going to be, buying the right house or taking the right job or making, whatever decision it might be, relationship, whatever it is. And that's really, and if you put yourself in a position to make that good decision, if you get too busy, you're not going to spend enough time to do that. And that is something, with my younger self, I was just so busy that sometimes I might not have spent time to make a decision. Now I'm a little bit slower on it. And again, I think if there's a balance, I might be too slow now, but I think it's important to make sure that you're clear-headed to make a good decision.
I love that. Decision is one of the bigger chapter at the book, Grow and Think and Grow Rich, which I think is fascinating. And I love what you said about incrementally of one thing. It's not just 1,000 billion things. And I really believe that it's a compounding, adding one day after another, contribute to a quote-unquote transformation or a huge major success that we are seeing. And I want to share one stats that I recently learned. According to James Carrier, a very, very successful serious entrepreneurs who looking at all the big technology companies in the last 3 decades. Think about Google, Airbnb, Netflix. I think a big company we all know and loved. What his research found that among all the success, only 4% of the value or success was created between year 0 to year 10. And 96% of them were created after year 10. So comment about what you just said is that incrementally, that one thing, that one decision today and this month and this year, but we're moving the needle to a decade later, and that's where transformation really happened.
It's hard to have that patience of knowing that it'll happen. But I think it's powerful to be able to do your best to try to see the future happening, because it's not going to be clear. It's not clear for anyone that the future is going to turn out the way you want it to be, but you got to at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
You got to allow yourself the opportunity, the chance for that to happen, those incremental changes to last 10, 15, 20 years it might take.
Yeah. Well, we might just die. We might gonna die. We're all for sure gonna die. We might just give it a shot anyway.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
sure.
I know I'm gonna live, crossing finger, at least another 10 years. So I might just try it.
I love it.
Nothing to lose. What drives you there? Today that you have accomplished so many amazing things, from one venture to another, now real market, what really drives you?
I don't, that's an interesting question. Is, a lot of these that you have to kind of introspectively look at yourself, because I don't really know. But what I would say, what I get excited about is, I think, interesting people. I love to be around people like you that are super interesting and exciting and doing things that I'm not doing. I love that. That's also why I love having a podcast, because you get around these people. And then I don't know how to describe it, but I really do want to have some kind of importance in life.
Yeah.
And, whether that is, and I think I drive a lot of that importance through what I do work-wise. Just that's who I've always kind of been myself. So I do want to create impacts, in some way, shape, or form. So I think, being interested in a lot of things, being around interesting people, learning. I love learning. Actually, sometimes I have to catch myself because I get down rat holes of trying to learn too much. It's like, hey, look, there's experts that already know this. This is going to take you way too long to figure out. I think all that kind of combined, it may be just new experiences that are exciting. I don't know.
I love that. What do you think, in your opinion, is your superpower?
I would say if I'm at a pitch competition, I'd be like, oh, because I've scaled things before. I've built things from the ground up. And by the way, with our marketing company, we've had some success stories. I have like a online store that we grew from $0 to $2 million a month and stuff like that. That's what I'd probably give as my pitch. But my superpower, I think, is to other friends and family and just people who reach out to me is I'm great at pushing somebody over the ledge. If they're thinking about leaving their job and starting something themselves, if they're, scared of asking for a raise, all those things, I'm really good at saying let's do it, and let's go out and make it happen. And I love those conversations. So I always tell, I have a buddy that was just talking to me the other day. He's thinking about starting this organization with dads and all this. And he's like, is this stupid at all? I'm like, no, let's go. Let's do it. Let's hire a designer right now. Let's get the logo going because it'll make it feel real. And then you'll get excited about it. And then let's talk to 5 other people next week. And so I think that's definitely what I get my superpower, probably, yeah.
I love that. You are a born leader. You see the gift in others. You believe in others. And you make it happen.
Much better put, much shorter put.
No, it's brilliant and it's wonderful. And then therefore, I just feel like, you and Christine, one of the people that I really treasure because you all just so brilliant in your own right, but yet so humble and so down to earth and so just intentional. I love that about you all. So with that, I'm wondering, Daran, what would you give? Is there advice or there insight you would share or you wish when you were younger?
That's an interesting question because I don't think I wish I knew anything because it would mess it all up, right? But I definitely would say that, look, you're going to work hard at whatever you do. Let's make sure that it's an important thing that you're doing or something that's worthwhile, because there was probably some things that I worked really hard on that wasn't that important, that didn't amount to much besides just a paycheck or something. So you're gonna work. I just wish I knew that my energy should be spent probably on the most impactful way, as opposed to just spending energy on whatever it would be. But at the end of the day, you also sit there and say, if you knew some of these things, then your path might be completely different. So I probably wouldn't want to know anything else that I didn't know.
So for our fellow entrepreneurs who are listening and so intrigued by your experience and wondering how he or she can do exactly the same, maybe he or she on this process had this amazing idea or in the early journey to think about how can I spend the energy to the part that really could be most impactful. How do they discern what is most impactful, what is not?
It's the people that you're going to be working with. If you're working around people that you aren't looking up to, that you aren't excited about, that aren't doing things that you wish you were doing, then you're in the wrong spot. And that's
I love that.
And if they're the woe is me type of people, you're really not going to be. They're not gaining much from it.
Yeah.
And hey, look, I like I said, I grew up poor, so I understand sometimes you just have to pay the bills. But there's a ton of jobs out there for people who want to work. So, and that are excited to work. I mean, heck, if you're just excited at a fast food restaurant, which I've worked in plenty, they'll pay you more. Trust me. Just showing up 15 minutes early and having a smile on your face, you'll become assistant manager or manager pretty darn quick.
One thing I love about you, Daran, is you have this can-do attitude. It's like nothing you cannot figure it out. And that amazing attitude, along with a visionary, that drive, that spark to see something from nothing, I truly believe that is what made you so special today.
Well, I really appreciate it. Stuff like that, it's really kind to hear. And it's nice to hear that stuff and I think we have to do that more often with each other, with your significant other, to really take a step back and realize some of these magical people that are around you, that how they affect your life. And that's why I'm really happy to be here and that you're doing stuff like this podcast.
Well, thank you and thank you, Daran. Likewise, I am so honored, so grateful to finally have you in my podcast to share your story, and I'm just so grateful. And wow, what an amazing journey. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I enjoy it so much. I hope you are too, and I cannot wait to see you all next week. Bye, guys!
Bye.